Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
This is Ed in San Diego, and you're on Global TV Talk Show. Our special co-host today is our friend Stephen Howard. Welcome, Stephen.
Good morning, Ed. Good to be with you again.
So I'd like you to introduce your special guest.
All right. Well, this is our Strive Excel show. So this is where we talk about leaders and how leaders overcome challenges and obstacles. And our guest today, Fahmeeda, has a wonderful background of overcoming obstacles, particularly in male-dominated university subject matters and in her career in what is mostly male-dominated industry. So, Fahmeeda, welcome, and why don't you give us a little background on your story?
Okay. So I'm Fahmeeda. I'm in Cape Town, South Africa. I'm an engineer. Went to university locally here in Cape Town, Eng background, and then decided to go back to school after about 5 or 6 years of experience, did a master's in business, and then had a good run in terms of working in industry. So I've got close to 25 years of experience in industry, largely in the energy sector, and for the last 19 years in the petrochemical sector. Yeah. So that's my background.
So how did you go from chemical engineering into leadership positions?
I think by fluke, to be honest with you. I had no plan. I was young and naive, and I didn't know what I was doing. But the one thing I think that worked for me was that I was good at what I was doing. And I think that's probably something that most people experience. I'm sure you've come across it as well, Steve and Ed. If you're good at your job, you end up getting promoted. And so that ended up being my pattern. I was good at what I was doing, and then the next opportunity came along, and the next opportunity came along. And I think one pivotal experience I had was that I had a sponsor that believed in me. And so what he did was he said, hey, you know what, actually you should try out for a leadership job. And, I interviewed, got a leadership job. I was in my mid-30s. That was my first exposure to being a leader in a male-dominated environment. Didn't know what I was doing, but I had to figure it out very quickly, and that just led me on a path of understanding what I needed to do, unfolding all the time to be a better leader. So I think, that has probably been the key to my success in this environment, understanding what will help me become a more confident leader.
Well, you've got a couple of baby boomer men that you're talking to today. And so as you went into leadership, what, and particularly in, as you said, you were in the energy sector and oil industry, and these are very male dominated industries.
Yep.
What were some of the challenges that you faced that Ed and I would never have faced, being, basically white males, and those are basically white male industries. So what challenges did you face that we would be oblivious to?
It's quite interesting that you frame it like that. And my experience has been is that the challenges that I faced as a young leader were very similar to people that started out new. And I found that, race and gender, did play a part, but it was really about me and myself. So I'll give you an example. The one thing that stood in my way or that ended up challenging me was my own confidence. I was new, I was young, and I was doubting myself as a leader in the beginning, thinking, oh, am I made up for this? Will I be successful? Everybody's got an edge on me because they've got a lot more experience than me. I joined a leadership team that probably had 20 years on me in leadership, so also baby boomers, as part of that leadership team. So I think that was the one thing, just the experience level starting out new. I felt that was something that disadvantaged me. And then I think also, although I was good at my job, this was a new experience, and one never knows how you're going to settle into, the leadership realm. So it was a very new environment for me. So I feel that, and maybe I've got blinkers on because I see through different lenses. I didn't think I was being disadvantaged because I was female. I didn't think I was disadvantaged because I was a minority group. Yes, my upbringing, my history, because I grew up in apartheid South Africa, did introduce those kind of disadvantages. So there was an edge, so if I just think about the question you asked, and I think about some of the inherent disadvantages that I didn't think about, it was because most of my colleagues and counterparts probably had a better education than me. So it was an edge for me to cross. So I don't know if that makes sense to you. I don't know if that is anything that can, make sense to you at all.
Yeah, it does. Ed?
Yeah, it makes total sense, and I admire your guts.
Yeah,
You
Yeah.
drive, and you conquered fear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that edge you're talking about, I mean, for most of us men, admittedly, we participate, we in better schools than maybe you got to experience. We get into sports or academics, debate clubs. We're always being pushed, challenged to put into leadership positions in a very young age. And pretty much we grow up thinking that we should become leaders at some day. But in your case, so what advice would you have for anybody, male, female, minority, not minority? What did you learn to overcome that lack of self-confidence? What tips would you have for people to overcome confidence when they're put into a challenging situation like you were?
Yeah. I'll talk a little bit to that, and I'll maybe also just share some of the things that worked for me. So, and it's based on my experience, and let me just be honest, what works for me may not work for other people. I mean, Steve and Ed, you guys have been doing this and been in leadership roles for a while, so you've got different kinds of experiences, different nuggets to share, so I can relate back to me and share what worked for me. So I think the one thing that was clear to me is to have, my posse with me. So for me early on to identify those people that wanted to see me succeed. So genuinely, sincerely, those people that really, really wanted and had an investment in my success. So identifying those people early was good for me. And then I actually engaged in a contract with them. So I said, hey, let's say Stephen or Ed, I would like you to support me. And please, can you make yourself available once a month, once a quarter? I either want to use you as a sounding board, or if there's a tricky challenge I need to navigate, can I seek your guidance? So I was very clear in terms of the request, and I was, I think forthright in what I expected from those people. So I think that's something that worked for me. And then the other thing that I had to learn very, very early on was to discern where and how to compete. So I was young, I had energy, I wanted to be successful, I had this drive and this vuma. And it's easy to slip into a role where you're competing with people that may be similar to you. So if you look around yourself, those that you're competing with probably feel or look similar, either a minority group, etc. And so, sometimes competing can be isolating. So I'll give you an example. When I started, the finance manager and the public affairs and government liaison managers, they were both females. And so we agreed we were going to support each other. We weren't going to compete with each other in the boardroom, and we're not going to compete for airtime, and we're not going to do that. We're going to support each other. And so we were very strategic. If there was a decision to be made and we want to lobby for it, we would caucus before the meeting, and then we go into the boardroom. And
So
then we
let me,
pretend, we don't.
yeah, let me jump in and ask you quickly,
Yeah.
were these two other women, were they also engineers?
No, they were not. They were not engineers. The one had a finance background, and the one had, public affairs background. Yeah, so they weren't technical in the pure technical.
So that's really interesting to me, because I can see that you're taking, or I have insight that you've taken an engineering approach, highly structuring your thinking to approach a certain situation, and then
Yes.
and then executing whatever you thought, and then looking for a result, and knowing, like you're visioning who's, in your headlights, you're seeing who might take offense or who might get upset, and so you're co-opting that by that approach.
Yeah.
And I applaud you for that.
Exactly right. And the result was that I had great allies, and I still have good relationships with them. They elsewhere in the organization or outside of the organization, but we were such a fantastic pack that we ended up maintaining the relationship. So yeah, it was a good outcome. Yeah.
So, our friend Stephen here has written 21 books, and I once asked him, how the heck do you do that? My gosh, I can't even think about a sentence sometimes. And so he says, well, it's an engineering approach. You take a piecemeal and you stack things up, and then you take one and you take another, or something like that. Right, Stephen?
I've never thought of it as an engineering approach because I'm a liberal arts major to begin with. But yeah, it is. I do have a structured approach to writing, and I think what Fahmeeda is saying here is a structured approach to how you manage your own career growth. Which personally, I think coming out of the pandemic, and we're in what's being called the Great Resignation. I think people do need to take more control of their career path, career journey. And I think that is a great tip, where you went out and identified people to be your mentors or sponsors, or whatever language terminology people might want to use. Most people hang back. They wait for the company to say, oh, you could be a potential leader. We're going to put you together with Ed, and he's going to be your mentor. And sometimes you don't even get a choice of who your mentor is. So I think self-selecting, self-identifying, going out and asking. And I know as a leader in an organization, if somebody come to me and said, could you spend an hour a month? Of course, I'd spend an hour a week with a person if it would help develop them. So I think that's a wonderful approach. Following that, so you talked a little bit about self-confidence and building up your self-confidence. So again, as a young leader, or as a woman leader, or as a technical leader, because you had all three of those labels on you. How did you build credibility and trust when you, in your first or second leadership position, with the people that you now have to lead?
Yeah. Very good question. The one advantage I had, I was actually groomed in the organization I was leading. So people knew me, people knew that I was somebody that was hardworking. But being an individual contributor and being a good individual contributor doesn't really mean, you're a great leader. So I think one of the things that really helped me was I started very early on in my career, a journey of self-discovery. And then it ended up me becoming a integral coach. So I went back to school, got a coaching diploma or certificate with a local school here, the business school. And I think one of the things that I'm able to do well is to listen. So I worked, I could say, actively at the quality of my listening. And so the feedback I typically get is that I'm able to see people. So making time for people, because what I've learned is that the people we have, they're actually quite talented and good technically. So they don't need a technical manager to be honest with you. So they don't need somebody to tell them the smarts. They've got the smarts already. So quickly on, I realized, hey, it's not for me to tell them, but for me to listen to them, to remove the stumbling blocks that may be in their way to get the work done. And so actively listening, and then also being able to see them, see their essence, being able to see the talent that they have and the talent that they bring, honing it, creating opportunities for them, promoting them, and then supporting them, especially in leadership forums. And there've been a few times where my people get attacked. So how you respond in those situations either makes you or breaks you. So, those are ideal opportunities for you to show up as somebody that's supportive and can actually ease up that tension for them. So I've constantly applied that kind of methodology. Look, I'll be honest with you. I believe I've been born to be in service. So that's my passion, how to be in service of my people. And I think they can feel that comes through in the way I am with them, in the way I lead. So I think that's both credibility, that's both trust, and when it comes to the trust part, and you guys will know this, it's easy to say things and make commitments, but the proof is in the pudding. So how you deliver. And I promise you, yeah, go for it, Ed. I'm sure you have thoughts based on what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, I do, but I want to make a left turn here for a second and ask you about the industry, the energy business. Now, that's a large integrated company.
Yeah.
Upstream, downstream, cross-stream. So was pipelines part of that by any chance?
I work mostly in the downstream side, so
which
yes,
is what?
We did have
So what is downstream?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Refining, yes. So, refineries, etc. So my experience is largely refining based.
I see. And the pipeline was something else.
Well, it depends on how you define pipelines. Pipelines could be whatever gets the product into the refinery or whatever gets the product outside of the refinery. In the upstream world, it's a different ballgame a little bit. So, yeah, pipelines form part of our business completely.
Yeah, interesting. So anyway, that's the only question I have at this moment.
Ed has dreams of building a water pipeline across the southwestern part of the United States, I think. So I think that's
to take all the hurricane water, and which goes out to, it's a waste. And so pipe it here to California. We need it.
And then clean it up.
Yeah, right. Refine it, distribute it, put it in the reservoirs, and it becomes the new oil in terms of a revenue producer.
Yeah.
It does.
I thought you were going to add your tips on how to build a trusting environment in a leadership.
No, I've learned the hard way. So with School of Hard Knocks and that, so I'm not one to give advice.
Well, I'm going to ask.
I don't believe you.
I'll ask for advice. So as you look now, we're coming out of the pandemic or almost coming out of the pandemic. Here in the United States, 11 million people have resigned their jobs in 3 months, partly because they don't want to go back to the workplace, or they don't want to go to where they used to work. What advice would you have for young people, particularly say young technical people coming out of university today or in the next 12 months? How should they look at the work environment, and how should they look at work-life, what I call harmony? Some people call it work-life balance. So kind of a double-edged question there.
Yeah. So it's a good question, and we've all felt it. And we felt it here in my industry, in my organization as well, the impact of the pandemic. One of the things that we've shifted to is working from home. So, this is pretty normal for most organizations. It's a model that most organizations have followed. But young people that, enter the industry, there are a lot of things they can actually do from home. So there are platforms that offer opportunities for you to do pieces of work. So you don't have a full-time job necessarily, but you can offer a service to an organization. So there are a few platforms that can offer that. And the one thing that I will say is if you want to get into the industry, if you want to get experience, keep money on the back burner and get the experience. And once you have the run length, then let money, if you are able to, then let money get back into the equation. But seek out remote opportunities for working. Those kinds of things would be some design type work. Design type work, you don't necessarily have to be at a physical location, like a site or a factory. So seek out those kinds of opportunities to be able to do that. And then, there are lots of organizations that offer what we call in-service trainings or graduate programs. So see if you can get into that. Sometimes the universities help as well. They serve as a link, to get you into industry. So if you can do that, link up with the university and see what kind of graduate programs are on offer. So for example, my organization, we take in a huge amount of graduate interns every single year. And, that's part of our way of giving back to the community and to the larger area. And then, of course, if you've got the entrepreneurial flair, think about what you can do on your own. There are always niche opportunities in the industry. If you have friends, etc., that understand the industry, seek their advice and look for those kinds of opportunities where you can be a sole contributor and offer those kinds of services to the industry. It remains a difficult thing for new entrants. I'm not going to create an illusion that it's easy peasy. No, it's not. It's still difficult, and sometimes it works by word of mouth. Somebody knows somebody that knows somebody. So use your networks. If you've got a network, just use it to the extent that you can. So I think that can work.
Boy, this is an excellent conversation.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Don't have a network, go out and build it.
Yes.
Well, purposefully build that network that to help you build your career.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a timely announcement.
Hi, I'm Sergei Gorbatov.
I'm Angela Lane.
Together we're researchers, writers and practitioners in the field of human resources.
And we've also been multi-country, multi-assignment career expats.
We owe our professional development and growth to a very large extent to the international assignment opportunities that we have had.
But in a world where distributed work may become the norm, we also want to understand what will happen to the nature, duration, and purpose of international assignments.
Together with our colleague, Julian Dalzell from the University of South Carolina, we're undertaking a study on the future of expatriation.
And we'd value your contribution. You can participate in this important study by completing a simple 10-minute questionnaire.
Access the questionnaire by typing in your browser tinyurl.com/expert study. That's tinyurl.com/expert study. You can also find the link here on Ed's website next to this video.
Thank you for joining us in this study. In return for your contribution, we'll provide you with a copy of our research.
And of course, you'll be invited to an exclusive webinar hosted by Ed, where we will share our findings right here on Global Business News.
And so please go to tinyurl.com/expat study. Take the survey so that we can better understand the future of expatriation.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
I want to go back to you talking about service of my people. And, it's very interesting because I love the way it's your body language. And you say my people, it's more friendly. I can see it's supportive. But sometimes I coach people and they're talking about my people, and it's very bossy, very directive. My people need to do this, and they're my people. And sometimes I say to them, no, they're not your people. They're the organization's people. They might report to you right now. But so you talked about taking a coaching certificate, right? It sounds like you brought some of the coaching skills into your leadership practice. Again, can you elaborate on that? What coaching skills did you use and why was it beneficial to you?
So I mean, initially when I started post my coaching qualification, my colleagues found me to be, and I'll quote their words, coachy. I was coachy. I didn't know what that meant, but I think for me it was about, there are certain things that I would recognize in people, that I used to feel or see in me. So I used to feel like, okay, how can I help this person reduce their anxiety? So I used to do a few things. One, I used to mirror, or if I see something they're doing well, I'd say, hey, did you notice this? You did absolutely well. So often people are their worst enemies. We have harsh inner critics. And so something small happens that, didn't go well. And then the stick comes out, and so for me, it was to be able to create that balance and say, oh, you did this exceptionally well. What do you need to pay attention to? So mirroring, and then language, the language I used, and then thank you for pointing out that I speak to my people. I'm very fond of them. So it comes from a place of love and not a place of bossiness. But what I wanted to share with you is that, often I was able to reduce the anxiety and be careful and mindful with the language I used, So seek their opinion. So what do you think we should do? And that's a leadership style as well. Okay, let's go and do that. What is getting in the way, for example, of you being able to be that way or do something? What's the greatest thing you can learn from this? Is that in service of what you want to achieve, and how can I support you? So I think lots of different language that I was able to introduce. So I speak different to my other technical counterparts. I think different, and I think I'm bold enough to call out things that need to be called out, where I feel there are injustices or unfairness. And sometimes, we operate, me too, with lots of blind spots, especially when it comes to the more humanness of being. And I feel I can actually say, hey, it's actually normal to be like that, you know, or hey, did you see that? So I feel I can do that. So I think that's I learned all of that, you know, when I was doing coaching. And then what I did for the organization, I introduced a lot of the tools to be used. And you know, so getting facilitators in and having workshops and sending leaders on these. And so I think, you know, we build a language in the organization that feels similar and we can relate to each other. The organization did take initiative as well. You know, my previous organization that I worked for, Chevron, introduced a program for future leaders that, you know, introduced me to coaching, and that's where my journey started. So they did a lot of good work, and my current organization is continuing that program. So there's a lot of support for that coaching type language and environment.
I have a question about the structure. While you were rising through the ranks, were your leaders who were most favorable and supportive? Were they line managers or were they within HR?
No, within my line managers. So definitely it wasn't within HR. And it's interesting you asked that question because HR had less influence in moving people and promoting people, and the line managers had more influence and, you know, more greater ability to actually facilitate that. So it was more my line managers or their managers that were very supportive of my moving through the ranks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Stephen, in an engineering environment like that, is that typical? HR is sort of over there.
Yes and no. It's typical, but it tends to be on the technical side. So they move line managers, move technical people into more technical positions, and sometimes supervisory positions as project leaders, not as people leaders. So here in Fahmeeda's case, it was actually, you know, she was identified, and they worked with her to become a people leader, which is not typical in any organization, much less a technical organization that I've seen, particularly oil and gas. As you know, Ed, I've done extensive work with the oil and gas industry in Houston and Louisiana, and very not typical at all in those organizations for people to be promoted for their people skills, more for their technical skills and what have you. So I think, you know, here we have a young lady who knows how to put together an assembly of people supporters and caucus. She used the word caucus outside the meeting. She's a service leader. She's a people leader. I think we need to archive this discussion so when she goes into politics in South Africa, we'll be the ones to say, we identified her first.
Not going to happen.
No, not going to happen. Yeah, we'll see.
Not going to happen.
But you come across, you know, a lot of self-discovery. You admitted to some self-confidence issues, yet you seem to be a very courageous woman as well. And I was an expat when I was very young, and I recall talking with you. You went on I think a 2-year expatriate assignment to the United States. Talk to us about that, and you know, what any fears you had overcome, or how beneficial that might be. Again, if you would advise people to grasp those opportunities, because so often people are afraid to leave their home country, and Ed does a lot of work in the mobility industry, so this will be of interest to his folks in the mobility industry.
Yeah, and please, I welcome you to add to what I'm saying, because I know Ed, he's from Southern California, so you'll probably be able to understand some of the things that I experienced. So for me, it was a very positive experience, a really, really positive experience. And I had full support, 120% support from my leaders and from my colleagues. So that already put me in a very positive space, and my organization then took very, very good care of me, you know, organized everything. I didn't have to worry about any of the admin. That just got sorted out. You know, it's unbelievable how well I was taken care of. You know, social security number was taken care of. Somebody came to pick me up to teach me how to drive and get my driver's license. I mean, it was crazy, you know. I never thought people would take care of me to that level. So I really, really had deep gratitude for that and really appreciation. So already I felt wanted. I already felt that, you know, this organization wants me to succeed and wants me there. So for me, that was something that I held on to. So there were lots of challenges that I faced there because remember, I was also new, looked different, felt different, sounded different. I've got an accent. So people were thinking, who's this person? And I got into a role working for the president of manufacturing. So I was reporting directly to him. So, it's like, okay, who's this person now coming from South Africa? We don't know her much. So I had to make sure that I don't introduce barriers for allowing them to get to know me. So one of the things, I'll give you an example, I don't know, Ed, you can tell me, and Steve, you can tell me, but I experienced Americans as huggers, a hugging culture. So it's not something I see every day in my workplace. We're very professional. We don't hug, etc. So I'm like, okay, huggers. So what did I do? I said, okay, fine. I'm going to go with the flow. This is what they do. I'm in a new environment. I want to integrate. I don't want to marginalize myself. So I just said, okay, fine. This is a hugging culture. This is a hugging organization. I'm going to hug you guys back. So, so I think for me, the challenge was to understand the difference in the culture, and also to be able to deal with some of the judgment, that came my way. I remember being stopped and say, hey, why do you wear a turban? And I'm like, oh my goodness, did this question just come my way, And so I had like a 30-minute conversation with a stranger about my turban, So being open to those kinds of things. So the challenges were you get people that just come to you and have a random conversation with you about something that feels very unfamiliar to them and looks very unfamiliar to them. So for me, it was like the challenge about just meeting them where they are at, explaining it to them, and having a conversation with them about who I am and what I'm about. So that came my way quite a bit. And, I'll be honest with you, I went into an environment where people were super confident. I'm like, wow, this is like impressive, how can I be a little bit more like that? So for me, it was okay, Fahmeeda, can you not be intimidated by that? So, I went into an environment that can be super intimidating. And at times I did feel intimidated. So that was a challenge that I had to overcome, So, how do I hold on to my true self? How do I hold on to my essence? How do I hold on to my worth and, function and operate from there? So those are some of the challenges I had. But overall, a fantastic, fantastic experience. You guys have a great country.
Well, thank you.
And hopefully it stays that way. Yes. So let me ask you a question, if I may, about Southern California. Were you stationed in El Segundo, or were you in another location?
No, I was in close to the Bay Area. So I was in San Ramon. That's where the head office area is.
Yeah. Okay, great.
So
Yeah.
up in Northern California.
Yeah. And there's a refinery in El Segundo. So I visited over there, a few times while I was in California. I had a good opportunity to visit some of the refineries within, our global world. So that was a good experience. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
So look, it sounds like El Segundo, Ed.
Yeah, so I relocated myself and my family at that time from Boston all the way across to LA, and had a lot to do with the corporate community as a member of the LA Chamber of Commerce. As a result of my business function at that time, was as a publisher of relocation guidebooks that we use for personnel recruitment and relo assistance. And Chevron was a very major customer of mine. They had a lot of recruitment going on everywhere, but in particular El Segundo and even San Francisco. But so I knew some of the senior managers involved with HR, talent management at that time.
Yeah. Probably a quite dedicated group that you engaged and dealt with.
Yeah, it was like a family.
So true.
Yeah, and still is. People are different, but it's the same
Yeah.
stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a long time ago, but well, right in that area there, there's now, today there's SpaceX
Okay.
right down the street, and Raytheon and other defense contractors and other energy companies,
Okay.
extremely highly concentrated business park. It's just adjacent to the airport, LAX.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Stephen, this has been a really insightful and educational meeting. And the theme has been throughout the thread, as I see it, is being a woman, being an independent woman, and having a teamwork approach built in, and having mentors, and then executing on the opportunities. Stephen, what do you think?
I agree. And I think also one of the things people can learn from her journey is to grab those opportunities. I don't think she had this career path planned at any point. She had various experiences, both in the energy field, the oil and gas field, but you take advantage when an organization gives you an opportunity, grab that opportunity, and as you say, get the right mentors, build your confidence. I love the way she brought coaching skills into the workplace, but I think, I'll be honest, my career is the same way. I went from marketing into sales into leadership, and when I was 20 years old, I could not have predicted my career path. So advice to young people today, and for leaders, help those young people grab those opportunities, identify opportunities, and stretch them, and let them go. Would you agree, Fahmeeda?
No, absolutely. I mean, you're spot on. I didn't predict that I was going to be where I am today. You just grabbed every opportunity, and did my best. And I like what you're saying, how do you give back? So if there's a young person that you see that's talented, how do you further their career? So just a lovely way you've summarized it all. Yeah. Thank you.
So what I see, Fahmeed, is that your engineering approach, your thinking, the concept development and execution, that's worth a fortune, because a lot of people don't have that. They get lost. They don't know what to do immediately in order to get to that big picture level, and that's your specialty, as I see it.
You're being so kind and generous with your words. But I will say, I mean, my training has taught me to be able to, have the big picture view, and then also dip into the detail when I need to dip into the detail. So I've got a technical group that I manage at the moment, but I don't have to be the SME and everything, but I can hold a conversation around technical subjects. So I don't think I would have been able to do that if it wasn't for my qualification. So, so yeah. And so you are correct. I think the training does develop you to think in a certain way. And I've had the great pleasure and the great fortune to be able to apply it as well. Yeah. So well spotted. Yeah.
Do me a big favor when you decide to leave the corporate world. Please join me as a leadership coach. I don't need the competition, so I'd rather have you inside than competing with you. So call me when you decide to leave the corporate world.
And
I'll do that.
Would you be open to people who may watch this broadcast 6 months from now or a year from now? Would you be interested to have them reach out to you, or should we funnel that through Stephen's office?
No, I'm very open. If I can help anybody, if it's just a conversation, or I'm very open like that. So whoever needs support, they're welcome to contact me, and I'll make myself available.
Okay, we'll manage this later. So thank you for being on Global TV Talk Show. It's been an education for me and a real pleasure to meet you.
Same here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you for offering me the opportunity. I am humbled, to be honest with you. And you guys do great work, and so I wish you all the best in what you're doing.
So when we have a guest like you, when I have a guest like you in the program, my job gets really easy. I just be quiet.
I just talk all the time, you know. So I thought we need to have a dialogue.
Yeah, okay. Well,
You
what
get me
else would you?
going, and I can just talk.
Okay, what else would you like to talk about?
Goodness, oh
Okay, come back another time and let's do chapter.
okay, come back
chapter
another
2.
time.
Yeah, chapter 2.
2.
Okay, thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Fahmeeda.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Okay.
You know,
Bye-bye.
take
Signing
care
off
and
from
have a great
Southern
day.
California.
Okay.
You're signing off from Cape Town. Wonderful. Like that. I have to
Yeah.
go there sometime. And
It's a
Stephen
beautiful
is
city.
high up in Mexico City. Yeah. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Stay
All the
safe.
best. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.